Most people quit because they confuse slow progress with no progress. But wealth is quiet in the beginning. It only makes noise later. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day, but they underestimate what they can do in a decade. Wealth isn't built in a hurry, it's built in layers, like bricks on a foundation. The question is not how fast you can run, but how long you can keep walking in the right direction. Every dollar has two futures, one that disappears with the moment and one that multiplies with time. Which future are you choosing every day? I've learned that one of the greatest traps in life is the hunger for short-term pleasure. Most people, if you watch them closely, are living for Friday night. They count down the days to the weekend, they measure life in little bursts of entertainment, and they spend their energy chasing moments that vanish almost as quickly as they arrive. And I don't fault them for it. It's human nature to want the immediate reward. But here's the truth. Short-term pleasure almost always robs us of long-term greatness. If you study the wealthy, you'll find they don't live for Friday night. They live for the next 10, 20, 30 years. They understand that what you plant today doesn't blossom tomorrow. It grows over time, and that growth is where the real joy is found. I remember a time when I was young, and I too was chasing weekends. I wanted the quick fun, the easy purchase, the immediate satisfaction. But I came across mentors who showed me the difference between the man who thinks in days and the man who thinks in decades. They said, don't spend your best energy chasing weekends. Build a vision for your life so compelling that even your Mondays feel purposeful. That advice shook me. It reminded me that wealth, freedom, and impact are not built in the thrill of a Friday night, but in the discipline of decades. The strategy is simple but demanding. Align today's choices with tomorrow's vision. Every decision you make should be filtered through the question, does this move me closer to the life I want 10 or 20 years from now? If the answer is no, then you must be bold enough to say no to the temptation, even if it promises comfort in the moment. Think about it this way. The poor man spends $1 today for pleasure. The rich man invests that dollar for tomorrow's freedom. Both feel something. The poor man feels excitement for a moment. The rich man feels satisfaction for a lifetime. The difference is only the time horizon. And let me give you something practical. Write down your 10-year wealth goal. Not just a vague wish, but something tangible and clear. It might be owning a business, having a portfolio of investments, or reaching a certain net worth. Whatever it is, put it in writing, then ask yourself, what one action can I take today that moves me closer? Maybe it's setting aside $50 into an investment account. Maybe it's reading a book that teaches you about real estate. Maybe it's reaching out to a mentor. It doesn't have to be big, it has to be consistent. The beauty of long-term vision is that small actions, compounded over time, become monumental results. So, the challenge is simple. Stop living for weekends and start building for decades. Because when you commit to vision over pleasure, your future self will thank you louder than your present self ever could. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned is this: freedom is never free. It's always purchased, and the currency is sacrifice. But here's the secret. Most people miss sacrifice isn't punishment, it's preparation. Sacrifice now, and you get abundance later. The problem is, most people want abundance now and end up sacrificing later. They want the vacation before they've earned it, the new car before they can afford it, the lifestyle before they've built the foundation. And when the bill comes due, they pay for it with stress, debt, and worry. The wealthy reverse the order. They discipline themselves today, they postpone indulgence, they let their investments grow, and in time, their assets pay for the luxuries others rushed into. That's not restriction, that's real freedom. I've watched people work so hard all week. then spend everything they earn on fleeting pleasures that leave them right where they started. It's like running in circles. You're exhausted, but you haven't moved an inch closer to freedom. But I've also seen others who made small sacrifices, who said, not now, but later, and they ended up owning not just things, but choices, time, and peace of mind. And isn't that what freedom really is? The ability to wake up in the morning and decide how to spend your day without money deciding for you. That kind of freedom is purchased by discipline, not indulgence. The strategy here is to delay indulgence until your assets can pay for it. Don't forbid yourself from ever enjoying the finer things. Just make sure they come from the right source. If you want the car, let your investments buy it. If you want the vacation, let your business profits pay for it. That way, you don't just enjoy the luxury, you enjoy it debt-free, stress-free, and guilt-free. There's a different kind of pleasure in knowing you earned it the right way, that your patience made it possible, and you'll find that the waiting doesn't kill the joy, it multiplies it. Now let's make it practical. This month, pick one luxury you normally buy and skip it. It might be dining out, buying a gadget, or upgrading your wardrobe. Take that money and put it into an investment instead. Don't underestimate the power of this small shift. That skipped dinner could turn into shares of a company that grow over years. That foregone purchase could be the seed of a portfolio that eventually pays for a dozen dinners or a dozen vacations. Small sacrifices, redirected wisely, become streams of abundance later. So the choice is simple. You can have temporary pleasure now or lasting freedom later. But if you choose discipline, if you choose patience, then one day your luxuries will come not as debts but as dividends. And that's when you'll discover that delayed gratification doesn't diminish your joy, it delivers it in overflowing measure. Success is never one giant leap. It is a series of small, intentional steps that gather momentum over time. Too many people sit around waiting for the big break, the overnight miracle, the lucky chance that changes everything. But that's not how wealth works, and it's not how success is built. It's brick by brick, win by win, day by day. Just like a wall is not built by staring at the blueprint, but by laying each stone carefully, wealth is not built by waiting for a jackpot, but by stacking small wins that compound into big victories. The philosophy is simple. Small wins create big momentum. Think of a train. At first, it takes incredible energy to get it moving, to push it past resistance. But once it gains speed, it carries a power of its own, almost unstoppable. Your journey to wealth is no different. Paying off that first small debt, setting aside that first $100, reading that first financial book, those are not trivial actions. They are momentum builders. They tell your mind, I can do this. I am making progress. And once your mind believes it, your habits follow and your results multiply. The strategy is to celebrate those small financial victories along the way. Don't discount them because they seem small compared to where you want to be. Remember, the wealthy don't just celebrate when they make millions. They celebrate when they stick to discipline, when they follow their plan, when they turn a goal into a habit. Every small win deserves recognition because it fuels your belief, and belief fuels consistency. Maybe you paid off a credit card balance. Maybe you finally saved your first $500. Maybe you finished a book on investing or practiced a skill that can increase your income. Each of these steps, though small in appearance, is a deposit in your wealth account, an investment not just in your bank balance, but in your mindset. Now, let's make this practical. Start tracking your progress weekly. Write it down. Acknowledge every debt you pay, every dollar you save, every lesson you learn, every action you take that moves you closer to your vision. When you see those wins accumulate on paper, you'll be surprised at how much momentum it creates in your spirit. It's like pushing a snowball down a hill. It may start small, but every turn adds more mass, more weight, more power, until it becomes unstoppable. I remember when I was buried in debt and trying to get ahead. The big picture felt overwhelming, but when I focused on one bill at a time, one book at a time, one disciplined act at a time, I noticed something shift inside me. The mountain didn't seem so impossible anymore, and slowly, step by step, I climbed it. So never despise small beginnings. A small win today is not just a number on a page. It is momentum in your favor, proof that you are moving, growing, and building. And if you keep stacking those wins, one day you'll look back and realize those small victories were the very foundation of your big success. If there is one truth that can never be negotiated, it is this: money can always return, but time never does. You can lose $1 and earn it back tomorrow, but you can never go back and reclaim yesterday. And that makes time the most valuable asset you will ever have. Sadly, most people treat their time as if it's cheap, as if it can be wasted without consequence. But those who build wealth understand that every hour is either an investment or an expense. Either it's moving you forward or it's quietly slipping away. The philosophy is straightforward. Time is the foundation upon which all wealth is built. The poor often exchange their hours cheaply, giving away days and weeks to distractions, entertainment, or meaningless activities. The wealthy, on the other hand, recognize that time invested in learning, planning, building, or connecting can yield returns that compound for decades. And because time is limited, the rich learn to guard it as fiercely as they guard their money. In truth, they value it even more, because lost money can be restored, but lost time is gone forever. The strategy is to make deliberate choices about how your hours are spent. You and I both get 24 hours each day. No more, no less. The difference between those who build wealth and those who don't is not found in luck or circumstances. It's found in the daily use of those hours. One man spends his evenings scrolling through television channels. Another spends those same hours reading, studying, or strategizing about his next business move. A decade later, the gap between the two is so wide it looks like luck or fate, but it's not. It's simply the compounded effect of how each man chose to use his time. And here's where it becomes practical. Reclaim just one wasted hour each day. 1 hour may not sound like much, but over a year, it becomes 365 hours. That's more than 9 full work weeks devoted to growth. Imagine what you could do with that. You could read dozens of books, start a small side business, master a new skill, or map out an investment strategy that changes your financial future. All from 1 hour that most people casually hand away to distractions without a second thought. I remember when I first realized how valuable time was. I used to think I was too busy to work on my dreams, too busy to study wealth. But then I began tracking my hours honestly. I saw the time I wasted on trivial conversations, unnecessary errands, and endless entertainment. That discovery shocked me into discipline. I began reclaiming those hours, and I redirected them into reading, into planning, into building. Over time, those hours became a business, that business became income, and that income became freedom. It didn't happen overnight, but it never would have happened at all if I hadn't taken back my time. So let me say it plainly. If you don't value your time, you will never value your wealth. Your future is being decided hour by hour. Choice by choice. Guard your time, invest it wisely, and it will repay you in ways money never could. The greatest wealth builders I've ever met had one thing in common. They knew how to hold two truths at the same time. One was the vision of decades, the other was the discipline of days. They weren't just living for this week's paycheck or this month's entertainment. They were thinking in decades, setting their sights on where they wanted to be 10 or 20 years from now. But they didn't stop at dreaming. They tied that vision to daily action. Because the truth is, long-term wealth is never built in one grand decision. It's built in thousands of small, consistent choices stacked one day at a time. The philosophy is simple. Most people want instant gratification. They want the results of the wealthy, but they want them by Friday night. That's why the poor stay stuck. They think in weekends. The wealthy think in decades. A man who thinks in decades doesn't get frustrated by the slow pace of progress, because he knows the small things are building into something massive. But here's the catch. Thinking long-term doesn't excuse you from acting daily. It's not enough to dream about freedom 10 years from now. You have to move your hand, your mind, your habits today. So the strategy is to marry the vision of the future with the discipline of the present. Have your 10-year goals clearly written, but then ask yourself every morning, what will I do today that lines up with that vision? That's how the wealthy operate. If the goal is financial independence in 10 years, then the decision to invest $50 this week is not small, it's essential. If the goal is to own a business, then the time you spend learning sales or marketing today is not trivial. It's laying bricks for the foundation. The problem is that most people underestimate today and overestimate tomorrow. They put everything off until later, and later never comes. The wealthy reverse that. They discipline themselves to make later possible by acting now. Here's a practical way to anchor it. Every morning, write down one action that serves your 5 to 10-year vision. Just one. Maybe it's making a call to a potential client. Maybe it's putting aside money for investments. Maybe it's reading 10 pages of a book that sharpens your financial intelligence. Over time, that habit creates a string of victories, and those victories compound into momentum. And momentum is one of the most powerful forces in wealth building, because once it starts moving, it carries you forward faster than you can imagine. I can tell you from experience, I didn't build my life by accident. I built it by tying my vision of the future to my actions in the present. When I was broke, I wrote down where I wanted to be 10 years from then. But more importantly, I asked myself, what can I do today to take one step closer? Some days it was small. Reading a book, attending a seminar, saving a little money. But those days stacked up. And when I look back now, it wasn't one big leap that changed my life. It was the small, consistent steps taken in alignment with a long-term vision. So here's the truth. If you think only in days, you'll miss the decades. If you think only in decades, you'll never act in days. But if you hold both, the dream for the future and the discipline for today, you will build wealth that not only lasts, but multiplies. One of the most common mistakes people make on their journey to wealth is trying to expand before they protect. They get excited about investing, buying, and multiplying, but they forget that unprotected wealth is temporary wealth. You can work for years to build something, but if it isn't shielded, one crisis, one emergency, or one careless oversight can wipe it away. And then you're back at zero. Not because you didn't work hard enough, but because you didn't build a wall around what you earned. The philosophy here is critical to understand. Wealth isn't just about creating, it's also about preserving. Imagine a farmer who works all year planting seeds, watering them, and tending the crops, only to leave the field wide open when the harvest comes. No fences, no storage, no protection. What happens? The animals take it, the weather destroys it, and all that labor disappears. That's how many people live with their money. They build, but they don't protect. And wealth without protection will never last long enough to grow into abundance. So the strategy is simple. though often overlooked, builds safety nets. Before you buy a new car or upgrade your lifestyle, ask yourself, what happens if something goes wrong? Because things will go wrong. Life is unpredictable. Cars break down, jobs disappear, economies shift, and health takes turns we didn't plan. That's why the wealthy don't just focus on offense, they also play defense. Insurance is defense. Emergency funds are defense. Risk awareness is defense. And defense doesn't just keep you from losing, it gives you the confidence to play the game harder because you know you're secure. I learned this lesson the hard way. Early in my career, I made the mistake of running too fast without building a cushion. I invested aggressively, I took risks, and when something didn't work, I had nothing to fall back on. And when you don't have a safety net, you end up scrambling, making desperate decisions, and often digging yourself into a deeper hole. It wasn't until I learned to create a foundation of protection, an emergency fund, proper insurance, risk management, that my wealth began to grow steadily and safely. So let's talk about a practical step you can take right now. Start an emergency fund. Don't wait until you're making six figures or until life feels stable. Start with your first $500, put it aside and don't touch it. That becomes your seed of protection. Then grow it until it covers 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. That's when you begin to breathe easier. Because now, if the car breaks down, if the job shifts, if an emergency strikes, you're not thrown off track, you can handle it. And because you can handle it, you can keep building without fear. Remember, wealth that is unprotected is wealth at risk. If you want to create abundance that lasts decades, you must first defend what you've built today. Protect before you expand. Wealth, when viewed only through the lens of personal gain, is small. It might look impressive on a balance sheet, but if it ends with you, it dies with you. The real secret of lasting wealth is this: contribution extends it beyond your lifetime. When your resources flow to others, when your money is not just a servant to your own desires, but a force that uplifts, multiplies, and changes lives, that's when it takes on a power far greater than numbers in a bank account. The philosophy is simple. Money that only serves you stops with you. Money that serves others carries your name, your vision, and your values into the future. Think about it. The poor often worry only about survival. The middle class focus on comfort. But the wealthy, the truly wealthy, think in terms of legacy and impact. They ask not just, how much can I make, but how much good can I do with what I make? That's why some of the richest men and women in history are remembered not just for their fortunes, but for their contributions. Andrew Carnegie gave away libraries. Rockefeller invested in medicine. Today, foundations and charitable trusts still shape lives decades after their founders are gone. Their wealth outlived them because they aligned it with contribution. The strategy for you is clear. Dedicate part of your resources to giving. It doesn't have to be millions, and it doesn't have to wait until you have enough. Contribution is not about the amount, it's about the principle. If you can give $5 when you have $50, you'll give $50 when you have $500. And if you can't give when you have little, chances are you won't when you have more. Giving disciplines your heart. It breaks the grip of greed. It trains you to see money not as an idol to hoard, but as a tool to steward. And the remarkable thing is this: when you open your hand to give, you also open it to receive. That's why giving multiplies wealth. I remember a time early on when I didn't have much. A man I respected encouraged me to give anyway, even if it was small. I thought, how can I give when I can barely cover my own needs? But I trusted his wisdom and tried. I gave a little to a cause I believed in, and while it didn't change the world, it changed me. It reminded me that wealth is about responsibility, not just reward. That small act of contribution began a habit that stayed with me, and over time, it not only helped others, it helped me grow in character, discipline, and perspective. So here's the practical step. Take 5% of your income, whatever the number is, and direct it towards something that uplifts others. It could be helping a struggling family, supporting education, funding a cause, or mentoring someone with your time. Don't underestimate the ripple effect of contribution. A small act today might plant seeds that outlive you by decades. In the end, money that only serves you will die with you, but money that serves others will live far beyond your years, carrying your values and your impact into generations you may never meet. Contribution extends wealth beyond you. One of the great lessons about wealth is that ownership will always outweigh consumption. Most people, when they receive money, immediately think about what they can buy. New clothes, the latest gadget, the nicer car, and while those things may provide a burst of satisfaction, they rarely provide a return. The rich understand a very different philosophy. They buy assets, not liabilities. They buy things that buy more things. The poor, often without realizing it, buy liabilities disguised as pleasures. That is the fundamental difference. Think of it this way. Consumption ends the moment you enjoy it. You buy a new phone, and by next year, it's outdated. You buy a flashy car, and it starts losing value the second you drive it off the lot. But ownership, real ownership, has a way of multiplying. The wealthy train their minds to ask, will this purchase feed me once, or will it feed me for years to come? It's not about denying yourself pleasure. It's about choosing the kind of pleasure that continues to pay dividends. The strategy is a shift of focus. Instead of rushing to spend on things that only satisfy for the moment, begin directing money toward assets that generate value over time. Ownership is the silent worker that never sleeps. A share of stock can grow in value and pay dividends. A piece of property can provide rent year after year. A small business, if built wisely, can keep producing long after the initial effort. Every dollar you consume is gone forever. Every dollar you invest in ownership can come back multiplied. I remember when I first grasped this difference in my own life. I had a choice. I could buy something nice that would impress others for a few weeks, or I could take that same money and put it into ownership, something that had the potential to pay me again and again. At the time, it didn't feel like much. One share of stock didn't look as exciting as a new gadget, but as the years passed, I saw that stock split, pay dividends, and rise in value. That little decision, small as it was, taught me a lesson I carried into every area of my financial life. Consumption fades, but ownership compounds. So here's the practical step for you. Before you buy your next gadget, pause. Ask yourself, can I use this money to own instead of consume? Take the exact amount you would have spent and buy a share of stock, invest in a fund, or put it into something that produces income. Even if it's just $50 or $100, the habit matters more than the amount. Over time, those choices add up, and the effect is extraordinary. Remember, ownership creates wealth, while consumption drains it. The rich build lives where their money works for them. The poor build lives where they are always working for their money. The choice, every day, is yours. One of the most overlooked truths about wealth is that it doesn't begin with millions. It begins with pennies. People often think that once they make more money, then they'll be disciplined. But that's not how it works. If you can't manage $100, what makes you think you'll suddenly be wise with 100,000? If you can't be trusted with small, you won't be trusted with much. Money doesn't change you, it amplifies you. If you're careless with little, you'll be careless with much. But if you learn to respect the smallest amount, you're preparing yourself to attract more. I used to tell people that money is like a seed. A seed is small, almost insignificant, but it holds the potential for a forest. The way you handle a single seed determines whether you'll ever see the harvest. Many people dismiss the small amounts. It's just $5, it's just loose change, it's just a cup of coffee. But wealth has a way of escaping those who don't value the small. Every fortune has its roots in pennies respected and directed with care. The strategy is simple but powerful. Treat every dollar with respect. Don't let money slip through your fingers unnoticed. Track it, direct it, protect it. Money loves clarity, and it flees from confusion. If you don't know where it's going, chances are it's leaving you. The wealthy don't wait until they're wealthy to start being disciplined. They build the habits early when the amounts are small, and those habits compound into fortunes. When I was starting out, I wasn't making much, but I kept a little notebook with me. Every dollar earned, every dollar spent, I wrote it down. It seemed tedious at first, but soon I noticed patterns. I saw where I was careless, where I was wasteful, and where I could redirect small amounts into savings or investments. Those pennies became dollars, those dollars became hundreds, and eventually, those hundreds became thousands. Looking back, I realize it wasn't the big financial decisions that made the difference. It was the small, consistent disciplines. Here's a practical step you can start today. For the next 30 days, track every single expense without exception. Don't leave out the coffee, the snack, or the loose change tossed at the counter. Write it down or use an app, but capture it all. After 30 days, review it. You'll be shocked at how much leaks away unnoticed. And once you see it, you'll have the power to redirect it toward building something meaningful. The principle is clear. When you learn to manage pennies, you invite the responsibility of managing millions. Money flows to the person who respects it, not the one who wastes it. Start small, be faithful with little, and life has a way of entrusting you with more. Most people live their entire lives waiting for the perfect moment, hoping that wealth will somehow arrive without ever stepping outside of safety. But let me tell you something. Safety rarely leads to greatness. Playing it too safe keeps you average. Wealth demands risk. Now, I don't mean throwing caution to the wind. I don't mean recklessness. I mean wise, calculated risk. There's a difference between gambling and investing, between chasing fantasies and making informed decisions. The wealthy don't avoid risk. They study it, they manage it, and they move forward with wisdom. Think about it this way. Every meaningful gain in life requires stepping into uncertainty. Starting a business is a risk. Investing is a risk. Even building relationships is a risk. But without risk, there is no reward. The problem is, most people confuse avoiding risk with being wise, when in reality, it's often just fear disguised as logic. The wealthy, on the other hand, understand that risk is the toll you pay on the road to reward. The goal isn't to eliminate it, but to take it with your eyes open, not closed. I remember early in my career, I had the chance to put a small amount of money into a new business venture. I hesitated because I was afraid of losing, but then I realized if I never step in, I'll never know. I studied it, I asked questions, I weighed the downsides, and then I put in what I could afford to risk. That decision became one of the turning points in my financial life. Not because it was guaranteed, but because I learned the habit of acting with courage when opportunity knocked. Here's the strategy. Don't run from risk. Study it. Learn how markets work. Learn how businesses succeed and fail. Learn how to read people and opportunities. If you take the time to educate yourself, you reduce the danger of recklessness. Preparation doesn't eliminate risk, but it minimizes unnecessary mistakes. And then, when you've done your homework, take action. You don't need to jump with both feet into the unknown, but you must be willing to take a step. And here's a practical step you can start right now. Take one small, calculated financial risk this quarter. It could be buying a few shares of stock in a company you've researched. It could be investing in a course that builds a new skill. It could be starting a small side business with a modest investment. The point is to train yourself to get comfortable with risk in manageable doses. Because wealth doesn't come to those who hide in fear. It comes to those who prepare, who study, and then who act with courage. Risk is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Cross it wisely, and it will lead you to fortune. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to rise so effortlessly while others stay stuck, look closely at the company they keep. Your circle determines your ceiling. Money doesn't just flow through markets or businesses, it flows through people. The quality of your relationships has everything to do with the quality of your results. If you surround yourself with people who complain, make excuses, and play small, sooner or later, you'll adopt their habits. But if you spend time with people who are ambitious, disciplined, and growth-oriented, you can't help but be pulled upward. When I was young, I thought wealth was only about hard work. But then I noticed something. Two people could work equally hard, yet one would make steady progress, while the other barely moved. What was the difference? Often, it wasn't effort, it was environment. One had access to better ideas, better models, better encouragement, and better opportunities because of who they associated with. The other was stuck recycling the same limited perspectives. That was the day I realized association matters as much as effort. I remember my own turning point. I was struggling, going nowhere fast, until a mentor invited me into his circle. Just being in the room with successful, disciplined people expanded my vision. They spoke differently. They thought differently. They planned differently. And little by little, it began to rub off on me. It wasn't that I suddenly became smarter. It was that I was influenced by smarter thinking. That environment became the incubator for my success. So here's the strategy. Become intentional about your circle. Don't leave your associations to chance. Audit your relationships. Who do you spend the most time with? Do they inspire you to grow, or do they encourage you to settle? If you find your current environment is limiting you, it's time to expand your circle. Seek out ambitious, disciplined people who are walking the path you want to walk. And here's the truth, you don't always need to meet them in person. You can learn from mentors through books, lectures, or courses until you get into those rooms. But eventually, you must step out and connect. Now, here's something simple you can do this month. Attend one networking event, a seminar, or a community gathering where growth-minded people are. Don't just sit quietly. Introduce yourself, ask questions, and exchange contact information. You don't have to meet everyone. One or two valuable connections can change your entire future. Because at the end of the day, your results will rarely exceed the expectations of your circle. If you want to grow, find people who think bigger. If you want to earn more, find people who are already doing it. If you want to leave a legacy, connect with those who are building theirs. Remember this, your circle determines your ceiling. Choose it wisely, and you'll lift your ceiling higher than you ever thought possible. Wealth doesn't begin with numbers. It begins with perspective. A thankful heart sees opportunities. A complaining heart will always miss. Gratitude is more than just saying thank you. It's a way of training your mind to focus on what's working instead of what's lacking. Too many people stay trapped in a cycle of scarcity because they constantly complain about what they don't have. But here's the paradox. When you complain, you blind yourself to the very opportunities that could change your situation. When you practice gratitude, you unlock your ability to see abundance, even in small beginnings. I remember when I was broke and frustrated. It seemed like everything was against me. My wallet was thin, my bills were stacked high, and I couldn't see a way out. But one day I decided to shift my focus. Instead of obsessing over what I didn't have, I started appreciating what I did. I had the ability to work. I had mentors who believed in me. I had a mind capable of learning. The moment I shifted from complaining to gratitude, my energy changed, and when my energy changed, my actions followed. That was the spark that helped me climb out of scarcity into abundance. The strategy is simple but powerful. Start every day with appreciation. Before you dive into your goals, pause and recognize the good in your financial journey, no matter how small. Gratitude creates perspective. It reminds you that every little win is progress, that the journey itself is worth celebrating. If you only focus on what's missing, you'll never feel wealthy, even when your bank account grows. But if you focus on what you've already gained, you'll build momentum and attract more. Wealthy people don't just count their money, they count their blessings. Because when you feel rich on the inside, you begin to make wiser, bolder choices on the outside. Gratitude shifts your state of mind from fear to faith, from scarcity to abundance, from doubt to confidence. And confidence is a magnet for opportunities. Here's a practical step you can start today. Write down 3 things you're grateful for in your financial journey. Maybe it's the fact that you made your first investment. Maybe it's the discipline to save a little more this month. Maybe it's simply that you're learning principles of wealth others never take the time to study. Write them down daily. Over time, this habit rewires your perspective. The truth is, gratitude is the seed of abundance. Without it, no amount of money will ever make you feel rich. With it, even small beginnings will feel like progress worth celebrating. And that mindset, more than any dollar amount, is what opens the door to lasting wealth. When it comes to building wealth, most people think the secret lies in some hidden investment, some secret formula, some magical shortcut that only the rich know. But the truth is, wealth is not hidden. It is built through discipline, perspective, and consistent action over time. It begins not with the money in your pocket, but with the mindset you carry in your heart and the habits you repeat every single day. The difference between those who live in scarcity and those who live in abundance is rarely luck. It is almost always vision, discipline, and persistence. If there is one thing I want you to carry with you, it is this. Wealth is a choice, not an overnight choice, but a daily one. Every day you choose whether you plant seeds or whether you eat them. Every day you choose whether to chase pleasure or pursue purpose. Every day you choose whether to build for decades or live only for today. And those choices, small as they may seem, compound into a destiny. You don't need to have millions to start building wealth. You need courage to start small and discipline to stay consistent. I know what it's like to look at your life and feel like the mountain is too high to climb. I've been there, frustrated, broke, and wondering if change was possible. But here's the lesson. No one climbs a mountain in a single leap. They do it one step at a time, day after day, refusing to quit. The same is true for wealth. Don't despise small beginnings, because small beginnings are the very foundation of great outcomes. A few dollars invested, a few hours saved from distractions, a few habits repeated daily, they may look like nothing today, but they become everything tomorrow. And remember this, wealth is not just about money. True wealth is about freedom. the freedom to live life on your terms, the freedom to give, to contribute, to build a legacy that outlives you. Money without meaning is empty, but money tied to vision becomes powerful. So don't just aim to grow your bank account, aim to grow your impact. Build wealth not just to live well, but to leave well. So here is my challenge to you. Do not leave here today unchanged. Don't let this be just another speech you listen to, nod your head, and then go back to the same routine. Take one idea, one principle, one step, and act on it today. Write down your vision, start your emergency fund, open that investment account, pay off that one debt, reach out to that mentor. Start small, but start today. Because the truth is, wealth does not come to those who wait for the perfect moment. It comes to those who create it, one decision at a time. So discipline your mind, act with intention, and build a future worthy of the life you were meant to live. The time to start is not someday. The time to start is now.